Welcome back to our second episode of HBHA Lore. I am joined today by one of HBHA's most long-standing, illustrious, and esteemed teachers. So whether you are new to HBHA or have been a part of HBHA for several years and even several decades, you should be familiar with her name. And if you are not, then you are in for a treat because you're going to get to know her better on this episode. Welcome, Laura Hewitt.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Oh, I'm so happy you're here. So, Laura, which I'm sure to many people is going to clang on their ears because they're used to hearing you as Mrs. Hewitt, right?
Okay.
Because so
Mhm.
many people have had you as a teacher. Let's start with this. You are retired now. How long did you teach at HBHA?
38 years.
38 years. That is quite a long time. I mentioned in the first episode that we are coming up on our 60-year anniversary of HBHA being a school. So you were there for about two-thirds of that time. So you retired recently. What year did you retire?
In 2019,
2019. Wow, I can't believe that it's already been
I
six
know,
years. I
six
feel like you
years.
were there last year. For those listening who know that I was a student, you are probably not surprised to hear that Mrs. Hewitt was my teacher when I was in third grade.
Third grade.
And
Right.
as we'll get into, she wore many hats during her time at HBHA, from lower school teacher, upper school teacher, administrator, really every role you can think of. But let's start with the time not at HBHA. How have you been enjoying these 6 years of retirement? What have you been up to these days?
Well, I'm into photography. I belong to a weekly photography challenge called 52 Frames, where they give you a challenge every week and you take a picture and post it on their website, and that's been a lot of fun. I enjoy that a lot.
That sounds awesome. Is it an online community or does it like meet? Is there an
No, it's
in-person
an
event?
online community. It's all over the world.
Oh, incredible. So do people when you get the prompt and you share it, do people or is there an interactive part? Do people comment on it or
Yes,
kind of share the
yes,
portfolio?
there is. I belong to two support groups on Facebook where you can post your picture ahead of time and ask for comments from a small group of people. And then when you post it on their website, then people can comment on it. And, you get comments from all over the world.
That sounds great. What has been your favorite post, your
Um,
favorite prompt that you responded to? Or what's might be favorite, might be hard if you're doing one each week. But what's one maybe from the last year or two that really strikes you, a picture that you took that you love or are really proud of?
Well, this one is from a few years ago, like right after I retired, sunrise. And my husband and I were in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, and we drove out to the Molten Barn, which is a very famous place to get photographs taken. A lot of wedding pictures get taken there. And
Okay.
we were there about 5:30 in the morning because it was end of June and took pictures there. That I really enjoyed. Plus, I take a lot of pictures of my grandchildren, and those are fun too.
Oh, of course. How many grandchildren do you have?
I have two. My grandson is 8.5. The half is important.
Very
And
important.
my granddaughter is 4,
Okay.
going on 14.
Four going on 14. Yeah, you can get away with the half age until you're about 10.
Yeah.
Most people aren't saying, oh, I'm 41 and a half. Amazing. I remember you doing photography for a while. How long have you been doing photography for?
Well, I've been doing photography for a long time. I started in this project a year before I retired, so in 2018. Jenny Safer is the one who
Mhm.
got me into it. She is a part of that group as well.
Oh, great. Maybe we can maybe Jenny will be listening to this episode and we can get some pictures posted in the comments. So photography, anything else that you've been really enjoying during this well-earned retirement after 38 years of teaching?
Um, I've had a lot of opportunity to read things that aren't teachers' manuals.
Oh, that's always very nice. I try to be a fairly avid reader myself, as you know.
Yes, you
What's maybe a book that you'd recommend to people that you've read in the
Well,
last
I
year or two that's
just
great?
bought this.
Oh, have you never read it before?
I have not read it.
Oh, well,
I
it
know.
is
It's going to be a tough
dark and
one.
wild ride, but a
Yes, it is.
fantastic book. And she wrote, for those who are listening and maybe not watching, it was The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood.
Yeah.
Did you ever watch the show?
I have not.
I haven't either. Yeah, I read the book maybe like 4 or 5 years ago, and I don't know if you know this. She wrote a sequel to it recently
I
called
heard. Yeah.
Testament or Testaments. I don't remember one of those two. I have not read that, but you know what? You might have just inspired me to pick up the sequel after that. Well, I hope you'll enjoy that. Have you been, you mentioned kind of traveling. Have you had a chance to do some traveling in this retirement as well?
Well, we've been to Yellowstone, and but we haven't traveled much because I'm having knee issues again
Oh, no.
with my non-surgical leg. So I'm probably going to have my left knee replaced in the fall.
Well, I hope that that goes very well
Yeah,
and as smoothly as replacing a knee can go.
yeah,
It'll certainly give you time to read
that's true.
during the recovery period. I
That's
hope that
true.
it's a very smooth procedure that
Oh,
goes as
thank
hoped.
you. I also have a wonderful neighborhood in which I get to walk.
Oh yeah.
Lots of trees, so it's shaded even in this heat, and I do a lot of walking now because I have time to do that.
Fantastic. Let's get into some HBHA things because I've known you for a long time. Like I said, I had you as a teacher when I was in third grade, and then I was fortunate enough to teach with you for, I guess, the first like 7 or so years that I was a
Mhm.
teacher. But there's a lot of things that I myself don't know that I'm very curious about. So I think a good place to start would be the beginning. So was HBHA the first school that you taught at, or did you have teaching experience beforehand? If you did, kind of what was the lead up? And then I'm curious, how did you end up eventually finding your way to HBHA as a teacher there?
Well, after my husband and I got married, we lived in New Jersey for 6 years, and I taught in an inner city school, kindergarten and first grade. And then my husband was in the National Guard. It was during the Vietnam War. And after he got out of the Guard, then we moved back here to Kansas City. I grew up here. He grew up in New Jersey. And so we bought our house here. And the woman who was living behind us was teaching at HBHA.
Oh,
And we got to visiting across the fence because our dogs were always barking at each other. And one day she said, I need a sub.
oh,
Can you
that's
come
how
sub
they
for
get
me?
you. That's
And
how they
that's
get
how they
you.
got
You know,
me.
you sub once and then you look up in 4 decades.
Yes. I subbed quite a bit. And then second grade, I started off teaching second grade. And second grade opening, a teacher moved out of town. And so I got the job teaching.
Okay, so it was from a neighbor. How long did the neighbor stay teaching there?
She was there about 4 more years, and then she moved to the public schools and got her administrator degree.
Okay, so when you start, so you start as a full, you started as a sub. Did you just sub part of that year and then join full time
I
like the following
started in
year?
the spring subbing, and then
Gotcha.
the opening came up, and so I applied for the job. But at that time in 1981,
Okay.
the school was small enough that the class I had, there were only 17 second graders.
Okay.
So I just worked in the afternoon.
Hmm.
And they had Jewish studies and Hebrew studies in the morning and general studies in the afternoon, which gave me time to work on my master's degree because I could, go to the library and take classes. I went to UMKC and got my master's degree. So I taught second grade. After 2 years is when Mrs. Crashen joined because the second grade got big enough.
Hmm.
And so we were team teachers for 8, 10 years. And then I moved to third grade. Uh, and I think I did that for about 8 years before I became an administrator.
Wow. Okay. So a lot of different hats here. So second grade, third grade, administrator, and then also eventually teaching upstairs as well, teaching in
Correct.
the middle of high school too.
Mhm.
A lot of different hats. And then, am I correct? My memory gets confused sometimes. Trying to remember it. Did you and Mrs. Crashen also retire the same year?
Yes, we did.
Okay, so you guys entered at very similar stages, and
Right.
then so Netta and you, I mean, that's a lot of time teaching together, which is
Yes.
incredible. So my next question is, what is it about HBHA that, that's a long time to stay at one school. So
Yes.
what are some of the things that kind of made you want to stay there for such a long time and really spend almost the entirety of your professional career in one place? What was it that drew you to it? Especially, you're not Jewish. So
Correct.
another question I'm curious about, but which I can get to afterwards is um, some of the interesting Jewish things you might have picked up over the years. But really, let's start with that first question of what is it that kept you there and invested in this one building for nearly 40 years?
I think it was, I know a lot of people say this, but it was the family atmosphere. When my husband and I adopted our daughter, the head of school at that time said, take as much time as you need when she gets here. I mean, she's Korean, and so we didn't know exactly when she would arrive in this country. And he said, take as much time as you need. Most places don't do that. They give you a limit. You got to come back to work. And I was ready to come back to work. I had wonderful childcare. A couple of friends and my dad were her babysitters. And so I was very lucky. And I think that's whenever she got sick, they would say, go home. We will find someone to cover you. Most jobs don't allow you to do that.
No. That's amazing. So yeah, that's a really long time. Going back to that other question that I kind of had in mind, right as I mentioned, I know you're not Jewish. But you spent a lot of time in the Jewish community. So I'm curious, kind of from your perspective, what are some of the things that you ended up really loving about or finding interesting about Judaism from the perspective of someone who's not Jewish, but spending so much time in a Jewish school? Are there things over the years that kind of were constantly interesting to you or things that you learned that were really kind of note?
When I first started at HBHA, my husband and I were going through a lot of fertility treatments,
Hmm.
and I was pretty angry at God.
Yeah.
And then being at the school and listening to people talk about their faith brought me back to my church.
Wow.
Yeah, and so I never realized how close the two faiths are. They
Yeah.
really are.
That's fantastic. That kind of your time at HBHA and spending time in a tight-knit Jewish community kind of really reinvigorated your own faith and spirituality.
Yes, it
Kind of a
did.
really cool story and way of thinking about it. I'm sure you picked up a handful of Hebrew words and phrases over the years as
Just a
well.
few. When my first year, when I was teaching second grade, all the kids ate lunch together at the same time. There were only 148 students, and they ate all together. And they always made the rookie lead prayers after the meal.
Okay. Hmm.
And so I learned to lead the prayers.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's Birkat Hamazon. That's a pretty extensive prayer too.
Yes, it is. I probably could do part of it still,
Sure.
but I haven't done it in a while.
I won't make you lead a Birkat Hamazon
Oh, thank you.
recital now. That would be a little unfair to put you on the spot with that. So let's start with kind of the lower school, since that's a lot of time that you spent there. How many years did you teach in either second or third grade?
Second grade was 10 and third grade was 8. And then I became the lower school principal for, I don't know, I've kind of lost track, 6 years, 7 years, something like that.
So what were some of your favorite aspects or memories about teaching lower school?
There's something really special about third graders. It was my favorite grade to teach of all the grades. You can still have fun with them, but they can tie their own shoes and zip their own coats and blow their own noses. But you
Uh-huh.
can still tease them and surprise them, and that was really important. My grandson will be in third grade this fall, and I'm very excited that he's at that age.
So I actually have an artifact. It's not with me right now, but that I either did. So I had you as a third grade teacher
Correct.
and Netta as a second grade teacher. And there's a story that I have all these years later that I either wrote in third grade or second grade. It's called Raunag's Journey. It was like a book that I wrote for some sort of creative writing assignment must have had about this kid who encountered a giant and then did a bunch of magic to elude the giant. And my writing was okay. The illustrations leave some work to be desired. But no, I mean, I still have memories. This is, now over 25 years later of some incredible things that I did in lower school I had what I would dub a murderer's row lineup of teachers. When I was in second grade through fifth grade, I had in order Netta Crashen in second grade, you in third grade, Marsha Cowan in fourth grade, Nancy Franks in fifth grade.
Oh my
So we're
goodness.
talking, that's like 120 years combined of HBHA teaching
Yes,
experience
it
there.
is.
And, I'd say that I learned pretty much everything I needed to know in those 4 years. So thank you for that. Were there
You're
any
welcome.
particular um, projects or assignments that you kind of loved doing year over year that even now you're like, oh man, that was always a fun one, doing that or taking the kids to such and such field trip that stick out at you?
The Were you in third grade when we went to Earthworks?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So that was it. I got to be part of the creation of Earthworks.
Okay.
Debbie Sosland Ailman at her job was involved with I can't remember which family it was that wanted to start Earthworks. And so I was in on the ground floor of it, got to help build the globe.
Oh,
Um,
I thought you
and
meant you got started with HBHA's involvement with Earthworks. You mean literally that you helped establish Earthworks.
establish it. We helped, we write, I wrote the lessons, the team, the teacher team that they created, we wrote it all.
That's awesome. Can you tell people what Earthworks is?
Earthworks, I'm not sure it exists anymore, except in the summertime, was housed in the caves up in North Kansas City, Riverside, I think. And there were 5 different habitats that you had to learn about. And then we studied all those habitats, what living creatures need in order to survive, and what each habitat had. And then when we went and it was a whole year process, and we went to visit Earthworks in the spring and got to experience all kinds of experiments in each of the 5 habitats. And those habitats were things that were native to Missouri, like the cave and the pond and the forest and the prairie. There's one more. I can't remember what it was right now. Do you remember which one you
Uh,
went to?
I don't. I do remember going like when third grade. There's certain grades where I have like a dominant memory of, and third grade is Earthworks. Fifth grade was Exchange City.
Say City. Yeah.
Fourth grade was the state fair, right? So I have
Oh.
kind of like very clear um, main memories that jump out
Mhm.
about certain grades. I think again, I could be mixing up grades. It was definitely in a lower school grade, some incredible experiment I remember where we turned light bulbs on through understanding like the
That was
how,
third grade.
was
Yeah.
that you?
Yes.
See, that was amazing. Kind of how did that experiment? I remember we were learning about circuits and how depending on the different ways that you would connect light bulbs, sometimes you would light up the whole
Right.
circle of the circuit. Um,
Yeah, that was a really fun unit. My father was an electrician, so he helped me put that unit together. And then I found, teacher materials about electricity and bought all the materials, the wires, the batteries, the little light bulbs, the switches, the circuits, and it was a fun unit. It really was.
Incredible. Yeah, no, I mean, obviously, I remember it still all this time later, and I felt pretty confident that it was third grade. I think
Yeah,
Groundhog's Journey was third grade also.
might have
Um,
been.
so I've mentioned here now that a lot of the teachers who you were teaching alongside were there for a really long time. You were teaching with some of these teachers for 20, maybe even 30 or more years.
Uh-huh. Correct.
So, just kind of describe what the teaching atmosphere was like, and what it was like teaching with some of these people for so many years and getting to know each other so well, working alongside each other in the same environment for such a long time.
Well, Ned and I, worked together for a long time, and we got so we could finish each other's sentences. When we were talking about students, we had the same ideas about how to help a student who was struggling or to challenge a student like you. How are we going to make sure that each student's needs were taken care of? And we thought alike. We still think alike.
Yeah.
So, it was fun. At one point, Nancy Franks, when she started teaching, I was already in third grade, and she joined the second grade because the second grade had gotten so big, they needed 2 general studies teachers.
Oh,
And then the next year, that class was small, so she traveled from class to class.
Uh,
She had a big cart that she pushed around every year with all of her stuff in it. She did third grade, she did fourth grade, she did fifth grade, she was back to third grade, and she finally landed in fifth grade.
that was where she belonged.
That's
Like I
where she
said,
belonged.
I
Yeah.
did all sorts of great stuff with her then. Um, so let's talk about some of your other roles that you had there. You mentioned you were an administrator. Was that something you were always interested in doing, or kind of how did you end up making the transition from teaching to being you were the lower school principal, correct?
Right.
For, like you said, 5 or 6 years.
Yeah.
How did that transition kind of come about, and what did you enjoy about, or find challenging, or what was interesting to you about that new role and that different perspective?
Well, it was an accident. I never thought I'd be an administrator. I don't have an administrative degree, but the woman that was the principal when she retired, and we all got over crying because we never thought she'd retire. Somebody said, "You should apply for a job." And I said, "No, I'm not going to do that." And then for like 3 days, I couldn't sleep. So I decided to apply for it and I got it.
And
And
lo and behold, you
I,
were there. So,
I,
yeah, go
I
ahead.
did like it. I did like it. What I liked the most was working with other teachers and making sure that I was helping them be the best teacher they could be. It was like I was teaching teachers, and I liked that.
Yeah, and that's something that I know you continued throughout because when I started teaching, by then you were working, I believe, exclusively in the middle and upper school.
Yes,
And you were both teaching and had an administrative role. And one of those roles was helping new teachers get
correct.
acclimated to teaching. And so I met with you when I started teaching, which was in 2013. Um, every couple of weeks just to bounce ideas off of and
Mhm.
get feedback from. How long did you do that for, and what did you enjoy about that aspect of things, helping new
I
teachers
did
as
that
well?
until I retired. And again, it was, teaching. It was still teaching.
Yeah.
It was just teaching adults. And I enjoyed that very much. I got to visit other classrooms because I could, when I wasn't in my own math classrooms, I could visit other classrooms and I worked with kindergarten teachers up through 12th grade teachers.
Wow. So then how long were you teaching in the middle and high school? Because I know you then started teaching math in the middle and high school.
Well, it was kind of an accident. The person who was teaching geometry quit
Okay.
and they couldn't find a job. They couldn't find somebody to teach one class. So Mr. Clower came to me and said, "You can do this." I said, "I haven't cracked open a geometry book for 40 years." And I didn't even know what a graphing calculator was
Uh-huh.
because I did everything by hand,
Sure.
everything. And he said, "Fine, you'll be fine. You'll be fine." And he was very helpful,
But
very
he's
helpful.
he's very encouraging and proactive.
Yeah,
I'm noticing a trend here, which is you start teaching in one position. Well, actually, you didn't even mean to start teaching there. You just showed up one day as a sub at HBHA.
yeah,
You stick
right.
around long enough, if you're there for almost 40 years, eventually every different position in the school will end up on your plate. Because by the end of the time, by your retirement, I'd say you had pretty much every job in the school aside from head of school.
Right.
You're a teacher, a principal, various administrative roles. So, what did you find kind of interesting or different about that switch from teaching second and third graders to suddenly teaching middle and high schoolers?
Well, middle and high school teenage angst is very different from third grade angst. And it took me a while to get used to all the hormones. Does that
Oh,
make
sure.
sense?
It does.
And but at that same time, my daughter was in high school. So I was being bombarded by teenage hormones everywhere
So
here
you
at
got like a
home.
little warm up at home, and then you got to,
Yes, yes,
experience it on full blast at school.
correct, correct.
So I think that, correct me if you disagree with this, I think that most people who had you as a teacher, which is many, many people, were lucky enough to have you as a teacher over 38 years, would describe you as kind but strict, right? Very fair, but also with very high expectations. Would you say that's kind of a fair
That's
assessment of
absolutely
yourself?
true. I was very strict. I'm still very strict with my grandkids, with my husband, but fair. and we
I
can
would
have a lot of
agree.
fun.
And I think that because of that, everyone who had you as a teacher or worked with you as a coworker, both had an enormous amount of respect for you and also really, really did not want to disappoint you or let you down. Kind of one of those, I was going to ask kind of, um, has that just always been your teaching philosophy? Do you feel like that just comes from who you are, who you were growing up? How would you describe kind of
It's
the
that's
philosophy you
exactly
adopted
the
as a
way
teacher?
that's exactly the way I've been all my life. All my
I think
life.
I think it's a great
Yeah.
way to be. I mean, it worked out. I think I can imagine that right now, anyone listening who had you as a teacher or who worked alongside you is probably nodding pretty vigorously and going, "Yeah,
Yeah.
that sounds
Yeah.
right." No, I mean you were kind of been well renowned for your I would say tough but fair discipline policies that
Mhm.
people always enjoyed.
Yeah.
Were there any we kind of talked about some projects and stuff. Were there any either trips or just like special, like unique HBHA moments that really stand out to you? It could be a recurring thing like that happens every year, like a graduation or things like that, or maybe just a particular thing that happened one year. But anything that you look back on all these years later and you're like, this really had kind of a big impact on me, or I really remember this.
One year I found this book in the library and I went and bought it. It was a picture book called Sign of the Seahorse. And it was, I still even have it. It was the story of these creatures that lived under the sea anemone, and all these things. And I read it to the third graders who were before your time. And they loved it. And they said, we should act this out. I said, okay. And so my mother, who was a very good writer, turned it into a script.
Oh,
And we had scenery and we had tryouts for the different parts. And we put on the play for the lower school and for all the parents. And it was really a lot of fun. Really a lot of fun.
that is awesome. And that's really one of the amazing and really cool things about our school is you can kind of have an idea that comes about organically and run with it. When you said
Right.
that story, it reminded me of a similar thing that happened with me in a class maybe 5 or 6 years ago now, which is I was teaching my junior senior English class and we were reading Frankenstein. And we started talking about somehow it just came up in conversation some of the parallels, a random parallel that someone thought of between something that happened in the book and the Passover Seder. And we were talking about that for a while, and someone was like, "We should write a parody song of something." And we started with that. We wrote a parody song of Dayenu, one of the main songs in the Passover Seder.
Uh-huh.
Um, and from there, we just kept building the idea, and we ended up writing an entire mock Seder where we
Oh, wow.
basically took all of the like steps of the actual Passover Seder, but we instead wrote like a Frankenstein parallel, and we made our own symbols because there's like a Seder plate that has all these symbols of Passover, but we took them from Frankenstein things instead. And then we ended up doing it with another one of the English classes, like actually putting on the Seder with them. And it was super fun and like completely random and odd, but also like really educational because they had to like really think deeply about Frankenstein and Passover as we put it together. But I feel like things like that kind of happen all the time, where someone
Mhm.
you just start in one direction and you keep going with it, and it ends up being a really cool experience. And I think that can kind of come about because you get to know the students so well that
Right.
when you know them so well and they feel really comfortable with you, ideas can kind of just come about organically and
Mhm.
go from there. I'd love to track down a copy of that seahorse script, or maybe there's a
I
maybe an
can't find
old-fashioned
it.
grainy video of the footage somewhere.
I can't find it. I found the book, but I cannot find the script, and I don't know where it
You
went.
have the book though?
I have the book.
Oh, so was it like published as an actual book, or like
Uh-huh.
not?
It's a picture book. It's a kid's picture book.
And you said your mom wrote it. Did she do the
She,
illustrations for it too?
no, she wrote a script
She wrote the
off the
script
book.
from the book. You guys had the
Mhm.
original book, and then you
Yeah,
turned it
right.
into a dramatized play with seahorse costumes, maybe.
Yeah.
Um, uh, that's amazing. Um, those were most of the questions I wanted to ask you, man. I mean, there's so many incredible kind of different things that you've done over your time here. Um, I'll end the same way I ended with Sam, which is I had some rapid fire questions for him, some
Okay.
connected to HBHA and some in a different direction. Um, so we talked at the beginning about traveling. What's favorite place you've ever been in your life?
South Korea.
Okay, and is that you
Our
said that's where you're
daughter,
from?
our
Uh-huh.
daughter went over there and taught English, and they have a lot of after school uh, schools that where kids learn English, so that they are fluent in English. And so she quit her job here in 2008 and moved to South Korea and got a job there. And because she's Korean, she didn't have to have a work visa.
Okay.
She had a different visa that allowed her to work anywhere. She didn't have to be hired by a particular school. And so over winter break, we went and visited, and it was a great experience.
That
Great experience.
sounds that sounds awesome.
Mhm.
I've never been, but that sounds amazing.
It is an amazingly huge city. Huge. There's when we were there, 10 million people lived in in Seoul and the surrounding towns. It's
All right,
big.
here's this one might be a tough one. Favorite school subject to teach. Now, I
Math.
obviously, oh, okay, maybe it wasn't so hard. What did you like most about teaching math?
It's logical.
Sure. And you got to run the gamut from starting with, as you said, not using a calculator at all, to
Uh-huh.
growing to expertly deploying the TI-84 graphing calculator.
Right. Right.
Favorite book? I know you're a big reader. Do you have a favorite book or one? I know that can be a hard one, but
To
one that
Kill a Mockingbird.
wow, after my own heart. So I've been teaching To Kill a Mockingbird in my
I
eighth grade
know.
class since I started teaching it my first year there. So I've taught it now 12 times. And you know what? Every time it's great. It never stops being amazing.
Yeah.
What is
And
it about
another
that book?
one,
Oh yeah,
Charlotte's Web. The
also a great choice.
first page of chapter 3, but I don't have a copy down here, is the most descriptive thing I've ever read. You need to find it and read it.
I will plan on reading it with my boys. I mean, I read Charlotte's Web when I was a kid, but I haven't read it in a long time. Was Charlotte's Web a book that you ever taught? Um,
No,
well, okay.
I
Um,
did read it one year to one of the classes, but I don't remember which one.
Gotcha. What is it about? So Charles Schwab, you said the descriptiveness of it. What about To Kill a Mockingbird makes it a book that really sticks with you?
My mother was the kind of person that said, "You cannot judge anybody until you have stood in their shoes. Go stand on Boo Radley's porch before you judge anybody." That
That's
was
what
her
your
mantra.
that's what your
Mhm.
mom's. Wow, she was very well versed in To Kill a Mockingbird. That's basically a direct quote from the book. Uh, yeah, if anyone listening, if you haven't read To Kill a Mockingbird, or even if you have, but it's been a while, it's always I get
It's
something new out of it every time. And like I said, I've taught it 12 times, so I'm pretty well familiar with it at
Yeah,
this
I bet you
point.
are.
Well, I will let you go here. This has been an absolute delight. I'm so
Thank you.
glad that I got to catch up with you. And I know that anyone listening who knows you either because they were a student of yours, or I'm sure there are multiple generations of students that you taught, people who you
Yes.
taught them and you taught
And
their
their kids.
parents
Hmm.
and or their kids now. Yeah.
Yeah.
And hopefully they've really enjoyed listening, and I'm sure they were nodding along, going, "Hey, I remember going to Earthworks with Mrs. Hewitt, and I remember when she taught geometry, or whatever it might be." So I'm so glad that I got to catch up with you here, and I know that people will love hearing about it as well because you are one of the long-standing pillars of HBHA. I mean,
Thank
it's
you.
impossible to imagine the school without you. We've been chugging along without you these past few years, but I mean the impact that you had over the course of, like you said, 38 years. That is an enormous amount of time that has had such a huge impact on students, parents, fellow teachers, really everyone in the HBHA community, which is why I wanted to talk to you as one of the first guests on the show, because I thought HBHA Lore, Laura Hewitt. It's even in the name, HBHA Laura Hewitt. It flows right into it. So I appreciate it so much, and I know that people are going to love listening to it as well.
Well, I enjoyed this very much. Thank you so much, Micah.
All right. Thank you. Have a great night.
You too.
Bye bye.
Bye.